Hey kids, it's me again, Margaret. So I've been thinking about addiction, because first and foremost, I am an addict, and I got here, through working the 12 steps of NA, and I'll get to that later. But addiction, to me, is a mental illness. Because, what are you doing, guy? Oh, okay. It's sorry. I decided to do this while I'm driving because one, it's convenient because I'm here and might as well make a video while I'm driving. And two, I am not self-conscious about talking to my phone. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if this works out or not. So addiction to me is a mental illness, a mental defect, for lack of a better word. Now, okay, let me clarify all this. These are my opinions from my experience. These are by no means facts. I have not asked Google to define addiction. This is, for me personally, what I think about my disease of addiction. I feel like I think that the id, which is the inner child, the the part of your personality that does not give a fork about anybody but itself. It's me, my needs, what I want. I think that my id is overdeveloped, and the rest of my personality, the ego and the superego, are underdeveloped because of that. And so if that's the case, then I have to relearn, which is what Narcotics Anonymous did for me, is taught me how to squelch that, to calm that, to develop at least the habits of the ego and the superego. Because, it's like, okay, it's like a sociopath. A sociopath has no conscience, has no regard for anyone else. But they are smart enough to know that that is not acceptable. Their thought process is not acceptable to society. That so they hide it. They learn to hide it. And addiction is very similar. Not that we're, sociopaths. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, we realize, or I realize that I'm not like other people. And I realized that very early. That the way my brain bends is not the way normie brains bend. Okay? And for me, it was traumatic experiences in childhood that broke my id. Or rather, broke the whole of my personality, the id, the ego, and the superego, that fractured the development of my personality development. And so that the id became, the driving force in my personality. I want, I need, and fork you for whatever. Don't stand in my way. I'm going to get what I want and what I need. And what I needed was to escape from those experiences, from my life, from, we say in the rooms that we can't, I'm doing 80, that we don't accept life on life's terms. And I didn't. I was a child. I couldn't accept life on life's terms. And so I looked for a way to escape. And, for me as a child, it was drugs and food. And a very active imagination. There were, whew, yeah, I wasn't expecting that. I dreamed of a better life. I dreamed of not being where I was. And since I was a child and couldn't escape physically, I could not leave the circumstances I found myself in. I had to find a way for my mind to escape. And so, I started looking outside myself to provide that escape. And so I started really, really young, like single digits young, trying to find ways to escape reality. So that by the time I was 15, hard drugs were available. And yes, thank you, I will. Give me more. So, and as far as addiction goes, you could be addicted, to anything. At least I can. Clothes. I have always been a big clothes whore. I mean, because that helped me change the appearance. Because inside, I was, you don't even want to wander around in the vast recesses of my soul, really, because, skeletons and dragons and demons, and it's just not fun. So, I used makeup, hair, clothes to mask that, because if I look good on the outside, you won't know how screwed up I am on the inside. And so that was part of the addiction. The clothes and the and the stuff, that was part of my addiction. And and then later, when I was put back into the circumstances, the traumatic circumstances, I turned to food. I ate my feelings. And so I got real heavy. And my brother, who I mentioned in my I've mentioned in my previous videos, he wouldn't take me anywhere with him. And I quote, "Because you're fat. No, you can't go to the lake with me, you're fat." And I know he didn't mean, he had his own demons, and I know he didn't mean, it was just an offhand flip. It was just an excuse to not drag his younger sister with him. I get that. And so, I stopped eating. And this is not a choice I'm condoning or encouraging or any of that. Don't do it. It's not healthy and it's a bad idea. I had two options: anorexia, which is just don't eat, or bulimia, which is eat and purge. Well, I don't like puking. I don't like it. You know, if I got to puke to get there, that ain't the kind of high I want to be. And if I got to puke to get there, that ain't the skinny I want to be. So I just stopped eating. I would just not eat. And so then, you know, my brother would take me with him. And that gave me the opportunity to feed my other addiction, you know, with drugs and alcohol. And so, you know, I was super young, and had no idea what I was getting myself into. No idea. You know, and I was miserable because I didn't work through, you know, the childhood traumas and all that um all that stuff, you know, those issues, because the impact of those experiences on my whole being, I didn't comprehend at the time. I didn't understand how much of an impact it had. I just wanted to forget. But inside, that inner child, that id, was screaming and just in such pain that I had to continually feed my addiction and feed the escape so I didn't have to deal with it, you know. And I wasted 50 years running while trapped in my mind. You figure that out. You know, I'm running from the memories in my mind, but I'm trapped in that cycle. So yeah, it's just it's crazy. It's crazy to think about the things that we convince ourselves of. You know, the things that we rationalize, the things that, you know, make us who we are. So, you know, that's my take on addiction. At least my addiction is that, you know, it's a mental illness. And, you know, from compounded by experience. But, you know, thank God I found Narcotics Anonymous. And I'll tell that story later on. And maybe next time I'll talk about Narcotics Anonymous, because I don't know how many. Oh, we're at 13 minutes. So I'm going to stop here and say, have a beautiful day. Love yourselves and each other as much as I do. And see you next time.